Hello, this is my presentation about the artist Edvard Munch. So Edvard Munch was born December 12th, 1863 in London, Norway. His parents were Christian and Laura Munch. Laura died of tuberculosis when Edvard was young. He was like 5 years old at the time, specifically in 1868. In 1877, Munch's older sister, Sophie, died of tuberculosis as well. Munch's father became very depressed after the death of Laura and Sophie, and he became very aggressive. Edvard's hard family life sort of helped shape his art career and gave him a lot of inspiration for a lot of his major artworks. Then, for Edvard's schooling, Munch first studied engineering, but then in 1881, he began studying life drawing under the sculptor Julius Middlethun. Then in 1882, Munch rented an art studio with 6 other artists. From there, he started learning more art concepts, and he gained some inspiration from the other artists. They kind of taught him some art things. And from 1885 to 1886, Munch began working on his big art project, his first big art project, The Sick Child, which was based on the death of his sister Sophie from tuberculosis. It portrays her dying from tuberculosis. She's laying in bed, and that's what the painting is about. The painting at first didn't get good reception. A lot of people rejected it and called it inhumane, I guess. It was controversial at the time. After 1886, Munch started doing more naturalist style paintings, meaning that he would do more nature centered paintings. He would paint a lot of things found in the wilderness type of paintings, like painting landscapes. But then in 1889, Munch went to Asgardstrand, which was a location that provided him with a lot of inspiration. And so a lot of paintings came from there that were based on the location. So there's a few of his paintings that are based on that one location. Then Munch eventually fell into a deep depression, and he started to isolate himself a lot due to the death of his father. Then Munch started to include more deep themes into his artwork, like sexuality, death, and then love. And then a couple of other things that he really went into were wood cutting to wood designs, wood etching, and photography. He really liked photographing himself, and he really liked just photographing everything around him and even his artwork. Also, when his artwork was being sold, he would make separate copies for himself to keep. So there's a lot of variations that he made for his personal copies of the artwork. And then in the early 1900s, his health really started to decline, and he became really addicted to alcohol, and it just kept getting worse, and he eventually got nicotine poisoning in the year 1908. And that really just kind of messed him up. But then once World War I rolled around, he started to isolate himself more, and he was just really a lonely, sickly person at this time, at this period of his life, which is really sad. It's really sad to learn about. And then really after the war, he wasn't much. He really didn't do a whole lot. He traveled around Europe for a brief period of time, but then once the 1930s rolled around, his health got even worse. He was temporarily blind. Like he started to partially go blind. He like got cysts in his eyes, which caused him to lose part of his sight. So he wasn't in that good of a position. And then what made things worse is that German museums and Norwegian museums at that time were pulling all his artwork out of the museums, and like they didn't want his artwork in there because they found his subject matters to be too dark, and like they described it as degenerate. So then eventually in the year 1944 he died of pneumonia. The first major artwork of Edvard Munch that I'm going to talk about is The Scream, which was made in 1893. It is considered to be his most famous artwork. It's widely recognizable. It's easily one of the most famous paintings of all time. There's a lot of deep themes involved with this painting. It looks very dark and depressing and looks terrifying. Like, honestly, it looks like it's the embodiment of like anxiety. So the themes of it are pain, just suffering from anxiety, and according to Edvard Munch, this painting really represents death, and like it's just like kind of like the horrifying side of life. It's the embodiment of the dark side of human nature. And then the second major artwork is The Sick Child, which was made in 1885. This artwork, like I said previously, is based around the death of Edvard's older sister, Sophie. She died of tuberculosis, and the painting is representing her dying from the disease, from the sickness, and it just portrays her suffering in bed, and it's really meant to be just a shattered memory, just a memory of Edvard that he holds very close to him, and it's an important part of his life. The third major artwork of Edvard Munch is the artwork Despair, which was made in 1892. It is very similar to The Scream, and it was actually considered to be a part of a collection that Edvard was working on, and it would include The Scream along with a few other paintings similar to those two. And according to Munch, this painting really represents feeling despair after being heartbroken. And it's just meant to symbolize a low point in life. It's with its kind of sad looking character, it's supposed to kind of symbolize heartbreak. Maybe for some people, it can be kind of surprising as to how Edvard Munch has kind of stayed popular throughout the years, and how his paintings have become very memorable. They really are very depressing, and they show dark subject matters, and they're just not that happy in tone. They overall just show the dark side of humanity. So really, why he's so famous is because his art style and like his deep themes kind of inspired a lot of artists. It showed people that they can really put depressing stuff out there to show the world that it's really not all a cakewalk. It shows that life really isn't easy, and it shows kind of like the mental battle that Edvard had with himself, and a lot of conflict that came into his life. So he was a major player in symbolic art. He still is, and he continues to inspire a lot of people to this day. We read about him and learn about him to this day. He's just an icon in the painting world, and his art really changed the landscape of art. It created almost like it's like his paintings are very memorable because they show us that he went through a lot. He wasn't like a perfect guy, and it shows in his artwork. And I think that's actually very admirable. Like it really shows that like not everyone is perfect. So in conclusion, Edvard Munch to this day is still a top player in the art world. He is still just amazing to learn about, and a very interesting guy to say the least. And I just feel really bad. I just felt really bad for him and all the torment that he went through, all the psychological stuff. It really seemed like he was messed up in the head. But hopefully he eventually found peace. But that is it for the presentation. Thank you for watching.